Did you know there's a whole laundry list of things that you are absolutely not allowed to sell on Etsy? And some of these things may not be as obvious as you think. That's what I'm going to dive in and talk about in today's episode. Let's go. Hey everyone, what is happening? Hopefully you guys are doing awesome. LL, your host of the Handmade and Beyond podcast. Glad to be back with you guys with a brand new shiny episode talking about banned items on Etsy. Things that maybe you don't realize that you cannot sell on Etsy and that may get you in trouble, get your shop suspended, get your shop dinged, and will hurt your performance down the road or just close your shop indefinitely, which you absolutely don't want. So I want to dive in and talk about these things today so you don't get yourself in Etsy trouble, Etsy jail, or get kicked off Etsy just from not realizing that you can't do this stuff. That's not an excuse. That will not work. Just telling Etsy that you didn't know that you couldn't do it, they don't care. They will suspend you anyways. Before we get started, I have something for you guys. Since we are rapidly approaching Black Friday, I want you guys to have the most successful Black Friday ever. That's why I put together the Black Friday playbook for you guys. I always want to give you stuff to bring your to help you perform better, to help you reach your goals when it comes to Etsy and e-commerce. And this is why I put this book together, because I want you to have a guide and a playbook for this Black Friday. Basically, it gives you the entire playbook of how to run a Black Friday sale or promotion, some ideas, as well as some templates for marketing that sale. So you guys will know exactly what to do, a step-by-step plan so that you can prepare and launch and get a boost of sales for Black Friday. Because I want you guys to have the most successful Black Friday and holidays ever. You can use this playbook for other sales and promotions as well. It's a free download guide, a couple of pages, easy to digest, easy to implement. You guys can get that at handmadeandbeyond.com/Black Friday. Download that now. All right, so let's dive into these banned items that are on Etsy. And like I said, some of these may be obvious, some of these may not be obvious, and I don't want you to not know about some of these items, so I'm bringing them to your attention. All of this stuff is in the Etsy handbook. I know the handbook is 1,000 pages, and it's hard to it's hard to interpret some things and find some things, so that's why I want to pull some of these out. This is not the comprehensive list. These are just the ones that I want to bring to your attention that may not be as obvious, so that you guys know and don't sell this stuff. The first one I want to talk about is bootleg items, which are basically counterfeit items. A lot of people get tripped up because it's bootleg. They're like, oh, it's bootleg, it's not counterfeit. It's the same thing. It's just bootleg items are an interpretation of the real thing. You see it a lot with 90s, early 2000s clothing, where like Tommy Hilfiger, Nike, they roll out the same designs, but they're basically brought to you in a way that company would actually never do. Different colors, different styles. So some of the bootleg stuff is really popular because they do really cool things with it. They mesh brands together and do all kinds of crazy things, but you cannot sell that. It's still counterfeit. It's still not, Tommy Hilfiger didn't make it, Nike didn't make it. So you can't sell counterfeit items, even if it is within the 20-year period, within the vintage period, because you can only sell items on Etsy that are more than 20 years old. And just because it's 20 years old, more than 20 years old, you still, if it's counterfeit or bootleg, you still can't sell those items. So be careful if you have some of those items, if you sell vintage stuff. The next thing, and this is something that really trips people up a lot, is they call this in the handbook reselling items. So basically items that are you're curating and then reselling them. What this really means is, with gift baskets, you're curating a collection of items, maybe a collection of perfumes or a collection of candles. But if it's stuff that you didn't make and you're just putting it together and reselling it, that's not allowed on Etsy. So people get into trouble. I've seen listings getting taken down. Gift baskets is a big one. where people are curating gift baskets for, gift for a guy's birthday, a woman's birthday, a wedding, different things like that, which are popular. But if you're not making those items in that gift basket, that is not allowed. That's basically just reselling items, and that's not something that you can do on Etsy. So be careful. If you're doing gift baskets, you have to have made all those components or worked with a manufacturer to make all of those components that are in that gift basket. All right, the next one, this is the biggest thing that people get in trouble with. I want to mention it because it is huge. Hopefully you realize this, but intellectual property items, copyright infringement, those will absolutely get you kicked off Etsy, get your shop shut down, and that's what people run into because they see other people doing it and they think that they can do it too. No, they just haven't got caught yet. So if you don't have the rights to the item, if you didn't create the item, you cannot sell it on Etsy. I don't care if it's, you drew the item, if it's a Disney character and you personally redrew that, you still can't sell it on Etsy, even though it's your work. You don't own the rights, the licensing to that character. That is not yours. So don't get into the trouble with that. A lot of people think just because they're recreating the item, they actually created it, that they can sell it. No, if you don't own the rights to it, you can't do it. So all the people doing the Baby Yoda stuff, which I've talked about before, the Disney stuff, you can't do it. You're going to get caught. You're going to get shut down, especially if a lot of the items in your shop are copyright infringed items. And Etsy recently made some changes where they made it even easier for people to file claims or to be able to flag listings for copyright infringement. So it's only going to get worse for people that are infringing on intellectual property. So just make sure you're going through your items, movies, quotes, characters, all that stuff you're not allowed to do. So don't get into trouble with that. That's the biggest thing that people do, the biggest mistake, which I've talked about before, that gets your shop shut down. All right, the other thing that maybe you don't realize is selling items that are internationally regulated. So maybe they're allowed in the US, but maybe they're not allowed in that country that's your primary market, your primary demographic. So maybe there's sanctions on those items, or they're just banned in that country. So make sure you're checking, with particular countries. Now, I wouldn't say check with, if you sell internationally, I wouldn't say go through all the legwork to check every single country. Just do the countries that you primarily sell to. If you sell internationally and most of the people are from Canada, maybe you just want to check with Canada. If no one else from other countries buy your stuff, then it's really not something that you have to worry about. If you want to check with other countries, you can definitely do that, but it should be for your primary market, just to make sure that you're not getting in trouble with those regulations. Etsy doesn't control that. They do try to prohibit certain things that are widely regulated or widely sanctioned, but it's not an end all be all. So just be careful depending on what you're selling. All right. The other thing that is not as common that may get you into some hot water if you're selling is basically recalled items. So items that were taken off the market. You see this a lot in the US for choking hazards, electrocution hazards, like lawn darts. They took those off the market because people were getting stabbed with lawn darts. So just because you find old lawn darts, maybe they're vintage, you can't sell lawn darts because someone's going to buy them and throw one and stab their Uncle Eddie in the eye at a family picnic. So you don't want to do that. So just make sure, just because you find stuff that are vintage or you're selling stuff, it doesn't mean that it hasn't been recalled, it hasn't been taken off the market. You see a lot of this with baby stuff that gets taken off the market. So if you're selling baby type toys or especially the older stuff is where you run into problems with that. So just be careful, make sure your stuff has not been recalled. There's a list of stuff that you can, there's a government website, I don't know off the top of my head, but if you Google it, you can search and it'll tell you all the recalled stuff that's on there. All right, that brings us to the next one. This is another one that gets people into trouble that is not, that people just don't realize, and that is cosmetic products with improper labeling. So the FDA has a lot of regulations in the US on how you have to label cosmetic products. So depending on the ingredients, you have to put what ingredients are. That's one of the examples of the labeling that's on there. So there's a couple of different labels that you have to put on your products, and this is all laid out in the Etsy handbook. You can search for it. You can also search for it on the FDA website. So just make sure that you're putting the proper warning labels on your cosmetic products to comply with the FDA regulations, because that is something that people, they think they're good to go when they're selling cosmetic products, and then they get their listing taken down and they get into trouble with Etsy. It's because they didn't meet the FDA regulations, and Etsy's going to regulate that because they themselves don't want to get in trouble with the FDA either. So just make sure you're using those guidelines to do the right labels for your cosmetic stuff, so you don't get in hot water. But that's probably something that's a lot of people don't realize that they have to do when it comes to the cosmetic stuff. So like I said, those are the main ones that I wanted to cover today. Some of those are a little tricky. Some of those aren't not as aware. People aren't as aware of them as intellectual property, copyright infringement, selling guns, just different things like that. Those are pretty obvious. That's why I didn't want to cover those, because like we all know, you can't sell guns on Etsy, and you can't sell copyright infringement, or at least you should know. But these are the other ones that can get a little bit trickier and can get you into trouble, and you may not realize it. So that's why I wanted to cover them. But all that stuff is listed in the Etsy Seller Handbook. So if you're not sure, make sure you're checking that before you just pop up listings and hope for the best. That's not a good way to do it on Etsy, because that will be the person that gets shut down and then complaining on message board that Etsy shut me down and I don't know why. Yeah, that's why. Etsy doesn't just shut down people at random. There's always a reason, and it's usually pretty clear cut. But that's it for today. Hopefully it helps you guys out, especially if you're selling stuff you're not sure is allowed on Etsy. Make sure you're following those guidelines, and make sure you download the Black Friday playbook so you guys can run an awesome Black Friday sale. Get a boost in sales, kill it this holiday season. Like I said, you guys can get that at handmadeandbeyond.com/Black Friday. That's it for today. I'll be back really soon with another episode for you guys. Have an awesome day.